So Carla, here are a couple of the problems that you showed me that I took pictures of. I'm only going to do 3 of them, and then I want to meet with you in person on Monday so that we can talk more about this. But just to get you started, so number 1, what I did here is I'm going to show you the long way and the short way. The long way is to think about, okay, I want to simplify this fraction. I'm going to break it down. In other words, the top is 14 is the first thing I see there. So I wrote that as 7 times 2. Then there are 5 A's, there are 2 B's, and there are 9 C's. So I just wrote it out. You are not going to have to do this every time, I promise. And then the 21, I wrote that as 7 times 3. There's 1 A, there's 7 B's, so I wrote those out, and there's 4 C's. So what we can do here is we can just cancel anything top and bottom that is identical. So the first thing I see here is a 7 on the top and a 7 on the bottom, gone. An A on the top, an A on the bottom, gone. Can't cancel the 2 and the 3 because they're not the same. Now the A's, I have more A's on the top, but I'm out of A's on the bottom, so I can't cancel any more A's. Now the B's, I can cancel. There's 1, 2, and now I'm out of B's on the top, so I can't cancel any more B's out. Now when I get to the C's, I can start canceling 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't cancel any more because I'm out of C's on the bottom. So what's my final answer? Well, the top is a 2, and then I have 4 A's left that didn't cancel, so that's A to the 4th. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 C's that canceled, so that's C to the 5th. I don't have any B's left on the top, so there won't be any B's on the top. Now I'm going to draw my fraction bar. In the denominator, I have a 3. I don't have any A's. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 B's, so that's B to the 5th. And I don't have any C's left. So my final answer would be 2 over 3, A to the 4th, C to the 5th, and then B to the 5th on the bottom. Now how could I get that without writing everything out? Well, I could start with the numbers. You always start with those, the coefficients. 14 over 21. What number goes into both 14 and 21? Well, 7 does. And 7 goes into 14 2 times, so that's where the 2 came from on the top. And 7 goes into 21 3 times, so that's why there's a 3 on the bottom. So we're just reducing that fraction. And then with the A's, the B's, and the C's, or whatever letters they give you, you're just going to cancel them out until you run out of them on the top or the bottom. We'll tell you to subtract, but the problem with doing subtraction, that is what it is. But sometimes when you subtract, you get a negative exponent, and we tell you your answer can't have negatives. So the way around that is to just say, let's look at the A's. There are 5 on the top. There's only 1 on the bottom. If I start canceling out top and bottom, I'm going to run out of them as soon as I cancel the first one. So there are more A's on the top. How many more? 4 more on the top than on the bottom. So that tells me I'm going to have A to the 4th on the top. When I get to the B's, how many, which has more B's, the top or the bottom? Well, the bottom does. How many more does it have? Well, 7 take away 2 is 5. So I'm going to have B to the 5th on the bottom because there were 5 B's left over on the bottom after I canceled. So wherever there's more of them, you just leave them there, and then you'll never have a negative exponent. So then the C's, there are 9 on the top and 4 on the bottom. So there are 5 more on the top. So after I would cancel, I would have 5 left over on the top. So that's the shortcut way. I wrote it out longhand so you could see why that works, okay? Let's take a look at number 2. What you can do with number 2 is you can break it apart, and that makes it a little bit easier. You can never break apart the denominator, the 24a, but the numerator, you can write this as 20a squared. Let me fix that. 20a squared over 24a minus, and then 16a over 24a. So notice that I just broke it at the top between the minus sign. You cannot ever break the numerator, or the denominator, the bottom apart. Never do that. But the top, you can separate it if it makes it easier. And in this case, I think it does. So what we're going to do is we're just going to reduce the fraction. So 20 over 24. 20 and 24 are both divisible by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So I'm going to put a 5 on the top. And 24 divided by 4 is 6, so I'll put a 6 on the bottom. Now, as far as the A's go, I'm going to use the same technique I used in number 1. Where are there more A's? There are more A's on the top. How many more? Just one more, so there'll be one A on the top, and that is the first fraction reduced. Now let's go to the second fraction. 16 and 24 are both divisible by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. And the A's cancel, okay? Now I can put this back together because you'll notice I have a common denominator of 6. So I can just say 5A minus 4 over 6. You don't have to break it apart, but sometimes that makes it easier. When we talk on Monday, I'll show you the other way you could do number 2, but for now we'll just go with breaking it apart. So Carla, for number 4, that looks pretty complex. It's really not as bad as it looks. We're going to take this just piece by piece, if you will. I'm going to start with the numerator of the first fraction, which is n squared plus 18n plus 80. And I'm going to factor that. And I don't know for sure how you were taught to factor, but I'm going to show you just what I think is the simplest way to factor this for right now, and then we can talk more about it when I see you. But n squared, you start with the first term. N squared can be broken down into n and n. Now I'm going to break down the last term, the 80. Now there are a couple ways to multiply and get 80. You know, there's 1 times 80, there's 2 times 40, there's 4 times 20, and so forth. So how would I know which one to choose? Well, I need a pair of numbers that multiply to give 80, but because this is a plus sign, I also need them to add to 18. And so I'm not going to use 1 and 80 because that doesn't add to 18. Neither does 2 and 40. 4 and 20 doesn't either. 5, I believe, and 16, but none of those are adding to 18. But then I come to 8 and 10. And 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 plus 10 is 18. So I'm going to use the 8 and the 10. And I now have to decide on the signs. Since the 80 is a plus sign, I know these signs have to be the same. And since the 18 is also a plus sign, they're both going to get a plus sign because positive 8 times positive 10 gives me positive 80, and 8n plus 10n gives me 18n. And now I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to break it apart. Now I've got n squared again, so that's going to be an n and an n. I have an 80 again also, but now I need the factors of 80 to differ by 2. So when I look at my choices that I listed over here in pink, I can see again, interestingly enough, 8 and 10 also differ by 2. So I'm going to use 8 and 10 again, only now I want to get a negative 80. That means the signs have to be opposite, and I want the middle term to come out to be a negative. So that means the 10, the bigger number, is going to have a negative sign, and the 8 will have to have a positive sign. Positive 8 times negative 10 will give me a negative 80, but negative 10n plus 8n will give me a negative 2n in the middle. Now I'm going to multiply and look at the next terms, or next trinomial, if you will. It's a trinomial because it has 3 terms. And this trinomial, once again, I have an n squared and an 80 that I'm going to break down. So the n squared is going to be n and n. Now I want the 80 to add to 18, which that's what I had before, isn't it? So I'm going to have an 8 and a 10 because that adds to 18. And but I want the 18 to come out negative. So the plus sign tells me these signs have to be the same, either plus plus or minus minus. In this case, they have to be minus minus because I want the middle term to come out to be a negative 18, not a positive 18. So I hope you see the difference between the first numerator and the second numerator in these fractions. And then on the bottom, notice that I only have 2 terms. That's a binomial, not a trinomial, because it only has 2 terms. So bi means 2. The other 3 are trinomials. They have 3 terms. So when you have a binomial, you factor it differently. You look for a GCF always. So when I look at this, I notice that the first term has a factor of 7, and the second number is a 56, and 7 does go into 56. So I can pull the 7 out. And when I pull that 7 out, I've basically divided each term by 7. So 7n divided by 7 is n. Bring down your minus sign. 56 divided by 7 is 8. So I'm going to close my parenthesis there. And I know I did that right because if I were to redistribute the 7, I would do 7 times n, which would give me the 7n back, and I would do 7 times negative 8, which would give me the negative 56 back. Now that I have everything factored, anything top and bottom that is the same, I can cancel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across the top, and each factor that I have on the top, I'm going to look to see if by chance I have that same factor on the bottom, and if I do, I'm going to cancel it out. So the first thing I come to is an n plus 8 on the top, and I notice that right below it I have an n plus 8, so I can cancel those. The next thing I come to is an n plus 10, but I don't have an n plus 10 right below it. That's an n minus 10. So I'm not going to be able to do anything with the n plus 10. As I go across, now I come to the n minus 8. I'm going across the top. I notice that I have an n minus 8 on the bottom, so I'm going to cancel those. The next thing I come to is an n minus 10, and I remembered that I had an n minus 10 on the first fraction on the bottom. They do not have to be on the same fraction to cancel. Just one of them has to be on the top and one of them has to be on the bottom. So now I'm done canceling because I've canceled everything that will cancel. So now what I have to do to get my final answer is I have to go back and look for anything that did not cancel. So as I go across the top, what I see that did not cancel is a factor of n plus 10. So I'm going to have n plus 10 on the top. And that's the only thing on the top that didn't cancel. And then on the bottom, it looks like the only thing that didn't cancel was this 7 right here. So I'm going to have a 7. And this is going to be my final answer. I'm done, okay? So these are the 3 problems I chose just to get you started, Carla. We can meet on Monday. We can go back through these 3 problems. I know it's not easy learning from a video because you can't ask questions. But we will go back over these, and then we'll go through all the other problems that you showed me, okay? Have a good weekend. See ya.